Alright, so let's add a little more details and then we're going to have to subdivide. Now, mind you, I am rushing through this because otherwise you would be sitting there for a long, long, long time. So, just because I'm doing all of this and saying like, ooh, I'm done in an hour, isn't necessarily mean that you'll be done in an hour or something to that effect. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm just trying to show you the general idea. And so as I kind of go through here, and now I can look at his, ginormous Adam's apple, and there's a muscle that kind of comes right through here. It comes right in from behind the ear. Let me tone that down a little bit. That's a bit much. So just you have this muscle that kind of comes in like this. And then we tone that down to pop that out a little. And you can see I'm starting to get, some of these where the muscles and stuff are. You'd also have a bit of a clavicle that would kind of come out, defining right here. Soften that out a little because it's underneath the skin. And so I'm just lightly doing this. If I really want to like have some fun and just kind of make it more grainy like it's muscle or whatever to begin with, I could use a stamp to kind of, just kind of give it a little bit of texture to it and then smooth it out, or, and you see these as I smooth that, it makes it a little bit more, a little bit more what it is. I'm just going to smooth that, kind of go through there. Okay. So as I do these, just to get, general shapes and start to get, develop this, I could use stamps to kind of add a little bit of texture to that if I want to, and I can just shut them off. So, let's do a little bit more, just a little bit right here, smooth. Oops. Okay, so I'm adding that in. Kind of flattens a little bit here, so I'm gonna smooth that. Kind of pops out. And it is one of those things, if you have a tablet, even better. But you see I'm just trying to build up, and you can see how I'm kind of toggling between the control to push things in, and left mouse, control left to push things in, left mouse to push things out, and just starting to just really slowly build up some of this stuff here. Kind of branch that out because he has a little bit of this sort of wrinkles that are coming in here. So I'm giving hints of them. I'm not trying to give this hard definition of anything as of yet. I'm hinting to, get this view so I can get some of these nice dimensions on him. I'll smooth that out a little bit. Yeah, that's looking all right. He also has this little indentation here. We'll push that in a little bit, and then we'll start to subdivide. Let's change our fall off back to this guy. He has this little thing right here, so we're just gonna, hold down control. Let's tighten that up a little bit. It's about halfway. Tighten it up even more. So we have that little thingy. He even has, actually has a little bit of cleft in his chin, so we'll just do that a little bit. Colon control, tighten that up, smooth that out a little. Alright, and we'll fix this up a little bit. It's just a rough, but it gives me something to work with. And the last thing, I think I want to deal with the eyes a little bit. Because what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to actually have spheres that I'm going to put in there. So let's push this more in. So it's going to be a little creepy at first. That's okay. And ideally, at some point, what would happen is I would cut holes out. But I can't do that in here. I'd have to do it in another program. So I'm just going to take these faces, and I'm holding down Control, and I'm just pushing them back so that when I put the eyeball in, it'll be okay. Let me just pull that up. Oh, there we go. Just push those faces back there, and we'll fix all this later. And smooth that a little. So we'll see that this is actually working pretty well. And then I can actually go in and just do a wee bit of a pinch tool right here. I'll turn off my steady stroke. And just to tighten that up just a wee bit. Not worried too much because I have to do a lot of work with that. And there's should be a little bit more going on, but we'll fix that. Alright, so I've got the general idea on that, and let's just double check before I do anything. Go look through the front and see how that's lining up. So I might decide at this point, you know, and you could see that some things have changed now. That could just mean that I need to zoom in and out. And once again, this is a guideline. It's not necessarily going to be like, oh my god, it's supposed to be perfectly set to it. I'm just trying to set it so that this is my basis that I'm going off of. And as I use my grab tool, I continuously kind of go in and make, you know, little adjustments here and there to, you know, to kind of affect things. God, he has a big chin. And do I need to move the eyes? Yes, I do. Just a little bit like that. Do I need to use the brow? Just a little bit. Just to get my lineups going okay. So I did make a few little changes here so that it does fit a little bit more. And then let's take a look at the side view real quick. So I've modified this, but once again, it's not going to be 100%. However, I am thinking that I gotta pull that eye back some. Okay. And we can see there's this little cut right here at the bridge. Pull that in. Pull this in a little bit. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of deal with this with the hair and stuff later. But for the most part, this is basically what I'm trying to get. And once again, there might be a little bit of a variance with some of this to how it was drawn and if things were off a little bit. So, once again, take it with a grain of salt that if you see things not 100% matching with what they were. But I'm kind of using that in my own eyeball to kind of see what's going to work best. Okay. And oops, we got to pull that out just a little bit. So we've got that, but this guy needs to be pulled just a little. Yep, I like it. Alright, and once again, we're going to also, his nostrils, let's pull those, oops, pull this in just a little. Cool. Alright, so now is the time to go in, make a new layer, and I'm going to add a couple subdivisions so that I can get into more detail. Now, in an ideal situation, I would have re-topologized this because things are starting to stretch and do some weird stuff. And we may go over a little bit of that. But right now, I just want you to get used to the generality of how to sculpt out this stuff and start to get things, you know, kind of going as I look and start to define how things are supposed to be. So if I go back in, yeah, that's fine. Now to get this mouth like a nice little cut, I'm actually going to use my, wait for it, use blind knife tool. There we are. And this I have to be very careful with, because if I go in and I go, you know, it's too high or whatever, it's going to cause me issues. So I want to use it sparingly. But now you can see I'm starting to add where the mouth is and just start to cut into there and just kind of, whoops, get a little bit of that look there. And I can always go to my, once again, go to your front view and see if that's lining up properly. It gets a little bit harder to see unless you look at the visibility and then you start to kind of go back and forth, and you can see I have mine a little bit higher. So his mouth, I might have to lower my mouth a little bit. And that's okay. That's why we're doing this. So we go in, and then I just kind of pull, whoops, hello, let's pull you down. There we go. And you can see how I'm lining things up. Okay. And then we go back, look through. There we go. That's better. Now we can kind of make adjustments as needed. The cool thing with this knife tool is it kind of goes both ways also, is that I can actually choose it, tighten that up, and I can actually hold down Control to give myself the, instead of cutting in, actually doing something like this to add a little bit. And if I increase it, it's just going to make a bigger edge. And then we'll just go in, do a little smooth because it's a little bit harsh. One of the treatments of the lips is that people have a tendency of making them look too cut in. You know, so in other words, the lips even though yes, it's a hole on your face. I'll stop that. Is that they kind of, oops, a little too much. They basically, if you notice, blend in more with your face a little bit. So if I go into here and I start to say, oh, I want to have this kind of go in, I don't go all the way there. I kind of blend it out, and that's what gives me a more realistic looking lip. And then once I have that in, I can do a little cut here. Smooth that a little bit. Smooth that a little bit. And you're going to get a much more realistic look rather than kind of really, you know, making it super hard in there. That doesn't really work. Now these little funky edges is because my wireframe is not dense enough yet. So if I was retopologized, or subdivided, then that would fix it. And then I would just continue on and start to look at where some of these details are on his face, and you know, like, oh yes, this edge right here, which is, it's basically the when you see a little line right here, it's a continuation of where the cheek is, and it wraps around the nostril, even though it doesn't look like that. So let me just use the smooth tool. This is bothering me. Let's kind of smooth this out a little bit. And if it's still not working right, let me use the bulge. Oops. And then smooth it out a little bit more. And then we go back in and either use the knife tool or the bulge, but the knife tool I can do subtle stuff with. And I don't want to make super hard cuts. It's actually better to lift this up sometimes than to just cut into it, because cutting into it is going to be equal on both sides. Whereas if I actually take my bulge tool, for instance, and I'm just going to hold down Control and then smooth this out and bring it down a little bit, and then I want to lift that up. Let's tone it down and kind of lift it up and then blend it. And then maybe if I want to do a subtle cut into it, you know, and tone it way down, and then smooth it out, you know. Or now that I have, you know, have that, if it goes way out here, then I could make this much larger, hit Control, and lift that up a bit on the outside. And then I can start to get a little bit more of a realistic transition. And then in the mouth, like right here, you have this sort of kind of little loop that kind of comes in. So I'm actually going to do it this way. Tighten you up. Control, lift that up on the outside, lift that bigger, smooth that out a little bit, and then we get that little kind of crease that's going on right there. And you can start to see I'm just doing a lot of the same stuff, but I'm working my way more and more to get those details in, and I look at where those details would be. And if I need it to be a little wider, oops, let's cut there. Kind of bring that in a little bit. Oops, jinkies. So I'm cutting in right there. I want to tighten it up, smooth that out a little, so I could start to get some of those little details kind of going in. Oops. My stamp spacing also affects it, but if I turn it down, I also need to turn down the strength because it's going to be a lot more defined, and you could see that, you know. So depending on the look that I'm going for and the details that I want, you can see that that actually is, you know, how it's affecting it. And I'm bouncing between different different tools to kind of get the look that I want. Now, at some point when we get the, you know, the eyeball, we can see, oh, it looks so puffy. What's wrong with that? And I can push this back in a little bit more. I will be able to go in with a pinch tool. And the tighter it is, the tighter it'll be. And then that pinch tool allows me, let's turn on steady stroke, to clean up the edge. See? So that I can get the nice guy. And if I go, it's gone too low, just use your grab tool and kind of tweak that out a little bit. And it's a constant battle of changing up things. Oops, and this video is getting a little long. Let me do one more thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the nostril in so we could start to mess with that. Pick your bulge tool, control, let's push that in. And we want it that we get this, just smooth it. And you see the nostril kind of loops in, right? So that means that at some point I have to do the knife tool, whoops, which is way too high, and kind of bring that under and in. Something like that. But I think I need to make that bigger. Control, pull it out. Grab, start to finesse it. And you can see I'm starting to get that look that he has. And that's starting to look pretty good. Slow build up. Very slow build up. And then I can go in, oh, I need this part out a little bit more, or I need to push this part in more. Whatever it is that you need, you know, you kind of go with that.